All right, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today I have Coach Denecke with me. He is new offensive coordinator and offensive line coach at Western Illinois University. Coach, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
That's the best combo, offensive line coach and offensive coordinator, I think. I think that's the best combo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes, you don't see it all that often, but I'm really excited for this opportunity and very thankful to be on staff. The McComb's been great so far and excited to get started spring practice in March.
I can't believe spring football is going to be here. Football like just ended for college and it's going to be right back before you know it. You guys don't get much time off.
Yeah. No, you go from the season to recruiting, and then you're back to winter workouts and getting ready for spring practice. So, not a lot of layoff, but that's why you get into it, right? I don't need too much time off. I don't got any hobbies.
That is your hobby. That's all you have.
Right. That's it. Get me through spring practice, and I'll hit the golf course a little bit. But until that happens, I'm good grinding on some tape.
I was going to say, being new, like you said, you literally start, I think, February 1st.
Correct.
What goes into your mindset when you're first starting? Like, how do you start meeting the players first? Is it recruiting first? Depending on what time you're hired, like what kind of goes into that at a brand new school, and spring ball is literally right around the corner.
Yeah, I started by watching last year's season with our head coach, Coach Hendrickson. Recruiting was pretty much wrapped up. My start date was signing day, so they did an unbelievable job signing a class at the mid-year day, and I didn't have too much to handle when I got brought on. So it's really just been getting a feel for the offense. And Coach Hendrickson's a brilliant offensive coach, so he's still going to be involved. And we're kind of melding our ideas and see where we want to take this. So again, just seeing what our personnel looks like, getting an idea of what we have coming back and what holes we still may need to fill.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly how all that worked because I think someone just got hired still, like they're still hiring. Like sometimes college football coaches are still hiring. Because when you come in with your offense, you have to look at the players and say, how can I fit this to them, right? You can't come in and say, this is all we're going to do until you see what you have.
Oh, absolutely. It's players, not plays. You have to have a broad knowledge and be able to adjust based on your personnel. Give the guys on the field the best chance of being successful. And to do that, you got to mold and morph and stick to your core values, but figure out what they can do best.
Right. I do. I'm the horrible offensive guy. I'm like, we can do this. And then you go look at it and you're like, nope, nope, nope. Throw that out the window. We don't need that.
Yeah. That's the beauty of spring practice. You can experiment a little bit and put guys in difficult situations and really just see them compete and, understand skill sets a little bit better and see how they've grown in the off season. So we're excited to see what we have coming back. And we have some really good players coming in that joined us at the mid-year, and then will also be joining us in the fall. So again, it's just about figuring out what this particular group does well and having an educated guess off of last year's tape. But at the same time, there's going to be some changes, and we just got to figure out how we can, best put these guys in position to succeed.
So how did you end up at Western? Because I think when I first was going to have you on, you're at Valpo University, and then now you're at Western. So it's just a big flip flop of changing. So like, what was your journey to get to Western?
Yeah, so I got hired at Valpo back this time last year, and then we had a solid season. And I was able to get in touch with Coach Hendrickson through a mutual friend, and one thing led to another, and I interviewed and was offered the position, and I jumped at it. It was everything I've been looking for, and excited to be a first-time coordinator, and that was really the selling point. It's the best FCS conference, and it was really a no-brainer once the opportunity presented itself. But a little bit of got to get lucky in this profession, right place, right time, and you're in a position where people are able to recommend you. And once you get on campus and interview, you just got to put your best foot forward there. And coach felt like it was a good fit, so here we are.
Yeah, sometimes it's who you know and what you know. I know they say it's who you know,
Right.
not what you know. I kind of think it's both. Sometimes it has to be both.
Yeah, you got to put yourself in a good position where people are comfortable recommending you, and very rarely in this profession are you hired, on a cold call. There's usually some sort of recommendation, but you still got to be able to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, during the interview process. So it is definitely a little bit of both. And again, just extremely fortunate, super happy to be here. It's a great staff that we have in place, and I'm excited to get going.
Probably being an O-line coach helped you out too, because I know for me moving up, we were talking before. I moved from Central all the way up to the suburbs, which is about 2.5, 3 hours. And to get coaching, what stuck out to everybody, oh, you coached O-line before and you played O-line, we need you. Because so I started to think about it. I was like, is there no O-line coaches anymore? Do people not want to do it anymore? And I put a poll out last week, actually, and I said, what's the hardest position to coach? And it was like offensive line is the hardest one. And I'm like, okay, that's why I'm sticking out like a sore thumb, because I'm an offensive lineman and I've coached O-line. So I think that actually helps some of us get hired sometimes, because like up here, people don't want to do it. Like our head coach now, he did it before I got here, and he played linebacker in college. So he was like, just hit him. And I'm like, no, there's footwork, there's this, there's that. And so I think sometimes that helps me personally think, oh, you're an O-line coach, you're going to get hired. You stick out more, I think, when you coach that.
Yeah, if you can find a good one, I was a little biased, but I think they're pretty invaluable. It's such a misunderstood position at times, and it's gotten a lot more attention recently, and social media has really exposed good offensive line play, and it's kind of exposed people that don't know what they're talking about at the same time. So like to think I have a decent tradition of success, and we've had some good offensive lines over the course of my career, and just I couldn't imagine coaching another position at this point. I've done a little bit of everything through the early part of my career, but this will be my sixth straight season and 10th overall coaching offensive line.
Yeah, I had a small stint doing quarterbacks when I was an offensive coordinator, like age 23, I think. I think I was that young. And nobody could do quarterback. And I said, screw it, I'll do it. I'm the offensive coordinator, I'll do it. Somebody else do O-line. First year I liked it because I was like, this is new, this is different. Then the second year, I'm like, this is boring. You're just throwing a football around. You're not hitting anybody. You're not doing this. And I would always look down at the old lineman and be like, I'll be right back. And I'd go down there and check in and be like, how's it going down here? And like I said, I did a little bit of everything, but that was the last time. And that was 2017. So ever since then, it's been O-line the rest of the way. And I've kept it because, like I said, it just helps me get a job. Like if somebody, I bounced around a couple of high schools, but the common thing was offensive line coach, offensive line coach, offensive line coach, and they let me do what I want because, like you said, we're kind of invaluable. Even if I'm the stupidest person on the planet, which I am, I think it's funny. People are like, well, how are you coaching this? And I have to tell them footwork and this. And I'm like, man, how can you see all five at one time? And I was like, you got to look quick. Your eyes got to move. Like there's no what, you can't blink. As soon as you blink, it's over.
Yeah, it's a trained skill. As a young coach, that's something I struggled with. Certainly, is being able to see the game on the field. As opposed from the all 22 version, and something I put a lot of time into because you got to be able to see it. You got to be able to adjust. Everyone's always going to come to you for answers, whether it's protection or run game or whatever the case might be. So you got to be able to see it and have the answers ready and be able to make the end game adjustments.
Yeah, and I know about you. Do you have another O-line coach with you to help you out with that, or like a GA?
No, with the last couple of years, it's been mostly the tight ends coach that, I've been on the field. The tight ends coach has been in the box at my last two stops, and that's kind of how we handle that communication. And then that is what I did when I GA'd my 3 years at Nevada, is I was up in the box communicating with the O-line coach or the D-line coach for the 2 years I was on defense. But no, not sure exactly how it's going to work out at Western this year. But I guess this 5 previous years, that's how it's been.
Yeah, I've only had another
communication with the tight ends coach.
Yeah, there's only been 2 of us one time, and it was the best thing ever because he could look at half, I could look at the other half. Then when it's all on you, like you said, you're quick to blame too if they get sacked. Well, what happened in the protection? And like the quarterback moved the wrong way, or the quarterback did this. Then there's times like, well, we just whiffed, or we just went the wrong way. Don't worry about it. But what happened? What happened on the backside? Well, I'm trying to see all of it. My bad. Like you're by yourself. Like my bad.
Definitely have to have trained eyes and have the discipline to not watch the ball and just know what you're supposed to be looking at and see your responsibilities. but yeah, I mean, again, if there's an adjustment that needs to be made, you got to be able to see it on the fly. And never a good feeling if you didn't see it and you come in on Sunday and said, "Well, that's an easy fix if we just recognized it."
Or the
So
the
try and stay out of those situations.
I've been on a staff before where the meeting was literally a replay of the game, and I had to stand up and say, "I was there. I know what happened. Don't worry about it." Those
Right,
are
right.
worse.
Oh, again, it always comes down to you just got to make sure you have answers. And if you're confident in your scheme, you should know the adjustments. And that's something that we've prided ourselves on in the past is training the kids to have those responses.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you're not blocking looks, you're blocking rules. And if the picture changes and something happens, you can get out of a bad situation without a catastrophe.
Right. That was a big mistake as a young coach was, well, you have rules, but then it was, we'll break the rules when this happens or add more to it.
Right.
And the older I
Right.
got, it's changed.
Absolutely. Same here. Same here. It was, oh, well, if they give us this exact look, this is a great response. They'll never see it coming, but you can't be based on that one picture. You got to be sound to everything they've shown and be able to train your players well enough to where if it's not exactly what you've practiced, they can adjust on.
Right. That's why, like, that's why my coach loves power. Cause he's like, gap down backer and just pull around, kick out. And I'm like, yep, perfect. But then my mind starts to expand and I'm like, well, what if they do this? What if they do this? Do I change this? Does the
Right.
tackle kick out? Does this happen? And then when I start doing that, that's when the kid goes, well, wait a minute, when do I kick out? Or wait a minute, when do I do
Mm-hmm.
this? So then you add verbiage to it.
Right. 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 And it's all about making, in my mind, it's something that we're emphasizing here at Western is clearly defining those rules for the
Mm-hmm.
guys. So that when those questions do come up, there's my goal is to eliminate any gray area,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a good amount of teaching that goes up front. But once they learn it, they can adjust it to any situation and apply it to any situation. So it's all about being very clear and eliminating the gray area. So when those questions do come up, they can usually critically think and answer it themselves.
Right. Just at the high school, like if we want the guy to kick out, we have to be like, oh, we have to call this and switch. Like it has to be that easy for them to,
Mhm.
oh, I'm just switching responsibilities. But then sometimes when you yell that, they're like, well, wait a minute, when do I switch? And I'm like, okay, Steve, now just take a step back and let's go back to basic. Let's,
Mhm.
go out formation a guy instead of changing the blocking rule, or, that's kind of what we're doing now is
Right.
figuring out how to out for, because we're still a new staff built together and we're like, we got out formation people. We have to do this, get the same look, get the same result. But like, do we add a tight end wing? Do we add this? Can we get an H back doing this and get the same thing out of the front five to make their life easy? Is what we're working on right
Same
now.
place, yeah. Same plays different ways. Dress
Right.
it up in formation and motion it every which way, but still keep your same handful of schemes that the players know well. That's really something that we started when I was at Maine for the 6 seasons. Is we kept our schemes pretty limited. We limited our formations, but we got to those schemes and formations in multiple different ways, and we had a good amount of success.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to do. Is do we just have more formations and limited plays, but like you said, motions and doing shifts or something to make it
Mm-hmm.
get the same result? That's what we're doing. I get too complicated sometimes, and I admit it to them. Like, okay, I start off the season simple, and then as it goes on, I'm like, well, we could do this, and then now you're just adding to that kid's plate of what they have to remember and learn, and then you start seeing different how in defense is going to stop you because we see a lot of 3-3 stack. All of us, like 7 or 6 teams out of the 9, is a damn 3-3 stack all the time. So I think I know how to combat it. Then they start doing 4 eyes and ones, and they start moving, they start shifting, they bring that linebacker down. Well, coach, now he's not here. Now he's here. Now the rule, like, so we have to figure all that out because our conference is built that way. And so that's what we're doing right now is making sure the rules, no matter what happens,
Mm-hmm.
stay the same.
Yeah, that's what we're in the process of doing right now is with our offensive linemen. We've been installing our base schemes and making sure that the rules are clearly defined for them. Um, we want to make sure that they know the base and teach in terms of concepts and not assignments, because the picture changes too much. You don't get enough practice time to go over every single look, but you got to make sure that through the course of spring practice and fall camp, and as you're teaching and installing, that they know what the starting point is, and they know
Mhm.
what the thought process is on each snap. All right, I go from here. This is my thought. This is all right. So gaps closed. Where's the next defender? And that we have our pre-snap checklist every play, and that's where in the process of teaching right now. And the guys are really taking to it. It's a really fun group to be around, and I'm excited to get off the whiteboard at some point and put some pads on, but can't time away. We got to take care of what we need to right now before we can practice.
Um, so we'll get right to a question to come on here because you said you'd come on here and talk about it, which I had just watched a clinic or went to a Glacier clinic to look at it, which is the duo run scheme, because I didn't know. I kind of knew what it was. And then during COVID, especially, I hopped on the train of like, well, this is just inside zone, right? Because we're double teaming everywhere, but we're reading the end. And I think one time I did it on purpose on Twitter and drew it up, and I was like, inside zone or duo. And I actually pissed a lot of people off, and I didn't mean to. I was just like genuinely just putting this on there. And people got
those are fighting words.
Oh,
yeah.
And it wasn't even the
I might have been one of them.
Maybe, and I apologize. It wasn't me trying to do anything. I was just like, because I think I saw someone else post it because, COVID, we had all that time on our hands. So it was just kind of like,
right.
I wonder if I post this. And it was genuinely a question. I was like, I genuinely want to know. And it wasn't even the old line blocking that people got mad about. It was the running back's path. They were like, well, because of this path, it's inside zone, or this path, it's duo. I actually had half and half. So I realized from that moment on that I can no longer joke about it anymore. I was like, it's the wing T air raid all over again is what was going on. So I've been looking at it more, and I've actually heard two things. I've heard where it's power without the polar, kind of.
Yeah.
But then like I've seen people do it where it's just literally double teams everywhere with a tight end with a wing, and it's not necessarily power to them. They're like, we're just double teaming, and if we're going to the right, they're responsible for this, and that's it. So can you teach me exactly for you what duo is so I'm not stupid and put that on Twitter ever again?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. To me, duo is a gap scheme. It is power, no pull. It really comes down to what you're deeming the play side and how you're identifying the point. For me, duo is a middle of 3 ID because you're always running it to some sort of closed surface. So because you have that extra hat front side, you're trying to find what we define as the middle of 3. So the middle of 3 second level threats. So in 4-3 defense, that should be a Mike ID. In duo, you're always IDing for the play side tackle. He's going to be involved in a combo working to the ID no matter what. The center's working to the minus or the second level player backside of the ID. Again, in a 4-3 structure should be the will. And then the adjuster, whoever it is, fullback, wing, whoever that 7th element is, he's working to the plus or the first play side back or play side of the ID. So that's kind of how we break it down. In our 2-back structure, the way I learned it is that you ID for the puller. So that middle of 3 ID is for the puller, and the combo works for the minus or that backside backer. And in duo, you're just eliminating that puller and exchanging those responsibilities on the front side.
Okay, because when people said power without the puller, I was like, so you're just telling the front side to get to that backer instead of going to all the way over, and now the guard doesn't.
Correct.
They're taking care of everything. And then but then people also were like, didn't describe it that way to me. They would just say, well, we're literally just double teaming the closest person and getting to the most dangerous guy. And I'm like, okay, maybe you're telling me the same thing, just different than that.
Yeah, that is it in essence, but it just, to me, that's not defined clear enough. I want to make sure that our guys always know exactly who they're working to and how that works out. Based on the ID, because everything we do in the run game has an ID start point. Most of our closed side runs are that same middle of 3 ID, where we're going to try and find the middle of 3 second level threats. And our open side runs are first play side inside ID. So that first play side threat inside the box, working outside in. Now it is duo inside zone. Yes, it really depends on how you're identifying it. Are you calling the ID front side, or are you IDing it to the open side, in which case that would make it inside zone to me? or tight zone or whatever you want to make the back's path. But if you're calling it duo, it's a gap scheme with a Mike ID.
Okay. I've also seen it where they've ran it with five linemen and then they have a guy go take care of the end, not a wing, like an H back. You know what I mean? And I'm like that,
Mhm.
and that's kind of where it made more sense to me of it being power without the puller because you still have a guy taking care of that, and the linemen are taking
Mhm.
care of everything else. That
Right.
makes way more sense to me.
Which it essentially is. If you're going to do it out of some sort of spread set, or 11 personnel Y off, it would work out the same way, where that Y off is taking care of the play side defensive end, and your Mike, your adjuster who's split out, the slot receiver is essentially taking care of the sandbacker, and the play side tackle would still be working to the Mike. So it's all about where you deem the front side of the play, and how you're telling your combos to work up.
And then what are you telling your running back? What are they aiming for in duo?
Their their aim point is the play side leg of the center, and it is a Mike read. So he is going to read that ID. He's going to take it right to that play side A gap. If the Mike backer, that ID hits downhill, he's looking to bounce. If he plays over the top, he's keeping it tight to the A gap. In which case, his eyes go back to the minus, the will backer. If the will backer is going to hang backside, he's going to bang it into the A gap. If the will backer also gets over the top, that's when it becomes a backdoor cut.
Okay. Maybe that's why I got yelled at on Twitter with the running back and the aiming point of what it was.
Yeah. And again, I think it's the best under center. That's in Valpo and Maine. That's how we ran the play. It really comes down when you're under center. To me, it all comes down to, is the back stepping with the offensive line, or is he stepping opposite the offensive line? And that's really what changes it from inside zone to duo in my mind. If I don't know the calls and I'm just looking at it on tape, is the line stepping left and the back's also stepping left, or is he stepping opposite? Because my favorite way to do is with counter footwork with the back. So he's actually going to jab with the offensive line to the direction they're stepping, and then come back play side, because it really holds that Mike backer to where if he steps play side right now, that backer is much more likely to get over the top, and you
Okay.
really want that backer to hang. If you're running duo, you want that thing out the front side. The biggest gains happen on the bounce. So you want to have leverage on the ID. That's the key to the play. As you're game planning it, I want to make sure that I have leverage on the ID, and try and seal it inside to give the back the best chance to press and bounce.
Okay, that makes sense because, like I said, the clinic I was at was just talking about footwork of O linemen. Like, okay, they're gonna,
Mm-hmm.
I think you call it skating, but it's kind of like a gallop where they're going into them.
Yep.
How they double team and everything else. But he didn't talk about. I didn't get a chance to ask about the running back because I kind of teach inside zone. He's running to the inside leg of the center also, but that's because I'm dealing with high school kids that if you tell them to aim for the guard like everybody else does, or the leg of the guard, they start to aim farther out. If it's cloudy, like right there, they try to just keep aiming
Right.
that way. So I try to overcompensate and say if they aim right at the center, hopefully that gets them to aim where I need them to aim so they can get that better cutback lane on inside zone. And that's why, like you said, duo, every time I look at it, is more like downhill to right here to where you're still downhill, even if it's in the B gap instead of A gap, it's still going downhill.
Correct. Correct. And you're running it to what would be in our terms deemed the play side, which would be the tight end wing or tight end, you know, fullback side. But the offensive line is stepping away from the play call. So if it's duo left, we're all stepping right and looking to, again, just create a wall of down blocks with as many combos as we can to give the back the ability to press and either bang it inside or bounce it out based on leverage.
Okay, so yeah, you call opposite. So like duo left, linemen are going to the left. Is that what
Duo
that?
left, we're stepping. Duo left, we're stepping right.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
So
left, right.
yeah, so our zone and gap footwork is pretty much mirrored. The only difference between a zone step and a gap step, besides our aim point up front on the defensive line, is that a zone step, you step play side foot first, no matter what, and a gap scheme, you step backside foot first, no matter what. So if we're running duo left, we know no matter what, we're stepping right foot first.
Okay. And I think where, at least for stupid people like me, where we're like, this is inside zone, is because we're just double team all over the place. So it gives that look of duo, even though it's inside zone. But we don't block the defensive end, obviously, because it's a zone read. So we're reading that person. So that was like the
Right.
difference of that. And,
In my
and
mind, the way I've kind of explained it in the past, if you're going to read someone on the back side or the front side of duo, it really just becomes tight zone, where that back is taking a, if you're putting in zone terms, he's taking backside aim point,
Mhm,
and it's never going to bounce front side. So he is backside leg of the guard to backside cut back.
mhm,
To whereas if it's in zone, he's going to chase either the play side, the inside leg of the play side guard, or the play side leg of the center, one of the two, where he's going to move with the offensive line for at least his initial read. Whereas tight zone or gun duo,
mhm.
he's down right now. He's not crossing that center's midline.
So why do you think us stupid people started to say this is inside zone and not duo all forever? Us stupid
Because
people.
people need some to argue about on Twitter. I mean, what the to me, it's really, there's sometimes where I think you can clearly tell, but unless you truly know the point or their rules, it's really hard to tell because there is a lot of crossover. A lot of people teach it in similar manners. Like if you, especially if you take the backfield action out of it, if you just showed an offensive line group, it's very hard in
Mhm.
my mind to tell the difference between the two.
Um, I think the only way I could tell the difference sometimes is linemen because I don't gallop. I don't have them gallop on zone. I just have them. They run their feet, and then the more I'm
Yeah.
looking at this, the more I'm like, okay, I call it gallop. I know maybe not everybody does it, but they're galloping or they're the way they're getting the flipper in there and like double
Mhm.
teaming, and that's a good way to tell. Um, and then just how quickly they're getting to the linebacker in zone. They're quickly getting there because they want that cutback or they want to follow that. I feel like with duo or power, you're really pushing them longer because they can push harder and then make that in duo.
Yeah. If someone asks me and I'm watching it, it's all about the back's path. If is he crossing the midline of the center and moving with the offensive line, especially if it's with in the gun,
Mhm.
or is he taking a an aim point away from where the offensive line is stepping? So if the offensive line's stepping right, does he cross the center's midline, or is he staying to that left leg of the center? And that's really usually how I make a determination. Or do they straight open up? That was our open tap footwork at Valpo, where again we're stepping right, the back goes left from under center. If he's going opposite the flow of the offensive line, that's duo. If he's going with it, that's zone in my mind.
Which that makes a lot of sense to get those linebackers flowing. That's great.
Mm.
I wrote that down. I was
Right.
like, this is something I'm looking to do maybe instead of zone. I'm a zone guy, but the more I'm looking at
Mm-hmm.
it, I'm like, maybe I need to do this. Like me and the head coach were
Yeah.
talking. So that's why I've been all over it. Like, because we run ISO too. And so we were like, oh, this is kind of like ISO. And I was like, kind of,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. We just don't have the insert guy or anything.
Yeah. Don't have the insert guy. If you are running it from some sort of eye back or offset, king or queen set, it just eliminates as many of those single blocks as you can. You're
Mhm.
going to get some sort of double team, usually on the two interior players. To do it, you got to have the tight ends are crucial because you got to be able to have the guy that can handle a 7 technique on his own. But if you feel good about that matchup, it's a very safe play. It was extremely efficient for us going back to the days at Maine. If you have the right back, it gives you the ability to be extremely explosive while really limiting your negative because you're not producing pullers. You should always have eyes to gaps,
Mhm.
and you should always have help at the point of attack.
Was this like, I think you might have just said it and I didn't hear you. Has this been like one of the main plays you personally have been around, or has it been other run plays that have probably been more of a staple?
For at least the last 6 years, starting in 2018 when I took over as the O-line coach in Maine, myself and the offensive coordinator Nick Charlton, who's now the OC at UConn, we really invested a lot of time in the play. So we kind of grew it in 2018 and 2019 to where it was our base run. And then in 2021, we really expanded on it and went to some nice, it was almost all out of condensed packages. So
Mhm.
we were finding ways to run it with the cross motion and wrapping guys around post snap. So it really evolved since 2018. I've kind of steadily been growing it, and we did a good amount of it at Valpo this past year as well. Because our offense coordinator Will Fleming came from Boston College, where they were obviously a heavy run operation, and we really jived on the duo aspect. So yeah, it's been since 2018. It's something that I've really prided myself on and ran a good bit of.
What other run play? It might be inside zone. Is that the one that where you steal reps in it? Maybe is inside zone, or is it more counter or power where you're like, we're going to steal reps and block
In
it?
terms of like in terms of a compliment,
Yeah, like what could be a compliment to that? The best way.
I think so. The way we approached it was duo was our closed side run.
Hmm.
So then you also need to have your open side run, which depending on your personnel, I think open side outside zone is a great complement for it because if you don't have the leverage to run duo, you should be able to have good leverage to reach and run off the backside because duo combo, and then all of a sudden you get backside cut off and get reach. It really keeps the defense off balance. So that was our best complement. Counter's also good if you can run it to the open side.
Hmm.
And then you're also looking for some sort of true perimeter run. So again, when we got into our condensed sets this past year or 2 years ago at Maine, it's a lot of crack toss because you're in some sort of bunch majority of the time. So you can get into some crack toss or pin pull or jet sweep to truly get the ball on the
Hmm.
to be able to attack all three field zones. And that again, that like I said, it evolved over time, and that was when we were really at our best on offense, is where we could limit our formations, know the looks, and have ways to attack, the closed surface, the open surface, and the perimeter.
Yeah, because I have two different off seasons. Last year, I dove real. I finally put my foot down. I said we're running wide zone. Like that was my. They had never done it before. I said we are doing it. I've invested time in it. Then last summer, podcast wise, on my own wise, like really dove into it. And the compliment off of it was GT, like the way they were telling me, like just run GT because if you're running wide zone, right, wide zone, which I made that mistake too. I said, is it wide zone or outside zone? And they said, whoa, hold on, they're two completely different things. And so I learned that. I didn't offend anybody. I just said, I'm so sorry because our D coordinator says outside zone. So it was just in my mind that this is
Right.
outside zone or stretch or something. And so I
Mhm.
learned so I correct my coaching staff now. When they say outside zone, I'm like, no, it's wide zone. Well, how do you know? And I said, aiming points of the lineman. I can tell like they're not trying to hook. They're and the running back. I
Right.
look at the running back too. Like, where's he going? How's he doing it?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you locking the box and trying to get on the perimeter, stretch and cut? That's
Right.
how you classify that. So we were a little bit more stretch and cut with it because we were normally running it to the open surface.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if they're going to try and overload their leverage to take away duo, you should have really good angles on the backside to attack what I call outside zone opposite.
Yeah. So that was my whole thing last year. So this year is going to be duo and what goes off of that. So I always have something where I'm like, because not too long of a story of like the head coach was hired in February of 2020, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020, and just everything shut. So we never got a groove. Illinois, we had all three sports seasons in the spring. So from January to June was all three. So we never could get our footing. We could never figure out like, we could install all we want on Zoom, but then we have a 6-week season. Like do we want to install? Do we want to change everything?
Right.
So I just kind of did what they did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then June 7th, I'll never forget the date, June 7th, the state said, go back to normal. So we started football and basketball, like nothing happened. And we were just go. So we had 2 football seasons in that same year. And we still just couldn't get our footing of like install and doing this and doing that. The kids were worn out. I was calling football plays at basketball practice and vice versa. It was just, So we're
It was
five.
a lot in a short period of time.
Oh, and I coached track, football, and basketball. It was bad. And we're just now getting our footing of like figuring out like exactly down to the core system of what to have. And
Mhm.
the head coach loves this look at this play. He loves duo because he's a gap scheme guy. So he loves downhill. He loves this. So that's why I'm looking into it. I mean, it looks like an easy play, but it's just more of, making sure the linemen know where they're going and the footwork. But that's all I've been looking at is making sure I knew that.
Yeah, we invested a ton of time around the time we really were expanding it. The 2017 off season, 2018 off season. Um, the Colts were running a good bit of it. The Rams were just starting to get into it with Coach McVay, so that we just did a ton of off-season studies and kind of pulled different things that we liked, and we're able to put it in our terminology and just kept expanding off of it.
Dumb question. Because every time I see
Yeah.
a drawn up, it's against an even man front. When you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing like a 3-3 or a 3-5, how much will that
Mm-hmm.
change footwork for linemen or where they're going or aiming?
It shouldn't change it at all. You just got to make sure you ID it in your terms. Make sure that they know. That's what we've been doing at Western the last couple weeks. Is how are we defining an odd front versus an even front? How does that change our ID rules? And really, essentially, the easy answer is you end up on the same people. If you're in a 43 front, all you're doing is that boundary overhang is the defensive end, and your leverage is slightly different, but you should end up on the same people. Um, but no, it doesn't change our footwork at all. The way that we rule it, it's all based on backside gap, open or
Mhm.
closed. So is there someone there? And then it goes to, are you covered or uncovered off of the front side? So is it a in 4 down terms, is it a 5 or is it a 7? So you can still apply those to the odd front, and you're still working to that Mike backer again, just treating that boundary overhang, whatever you want to call him, as the 4th down.
Okay, because like an ISO, I think of it as ISO. I almost triple team to the nose if we've got five techniques. I try to get my tackles inside, or if the tight end's on there on the line of scrimmage, because sometimes we'd have a line like tight on the line of scrimmage and a wing inserted. We double team with our
Mm-hmm.
tight end, and I almost had them triple team the nose just because I wanted the running
Yeah.
back to get downhill now.
Mm-hmm.
Is the way we would do it.
Now we're still, when you move to the odd stack, again, you're going to end up on those same people, and essentially gets sectioned off. So you have 3 2-man combos. So backside guard, backside tackle would take the backside down on the backside stack, center play side guard to the nose to middle stack, tackle tight end, play side end, play side stack, and you just section it off that way. And then if you're, as you get into the odd, a little bit more movement, that's when we'll move into multi-man combos, protecting against gap exchanges and things of that nature. But that would be our base way. So we're always going to start with 2-man combos, and then based on tendencies and tells, we'll expand to 3 and 4 mans.
Yeah, because I need the stupid way first. I need the simplest, dumbest way because I'm stupid simple when it comes to stuff.
And duo is the best way to do it because, again, you're not introducing variables with pullers. If you get a lot of movement and gap schemes, and you're worried about back blocks and people crossing the center's face, how are you handling that? The duo backside gap to linebacker,
Mhm.
1-step indicator. So if I step to my backside gap and there's someone there, that's mine.
Right.
If there's not, I check the gap for 1 step and then I climb. And that's the simplest way to do it. That's our base rule for any gap scheme is backside gap to linebacker, and we'll build off of that. But again, it is as simple as that because you're not vacating any gaps on the snap. You're not pulling. You're not opening up seams where you should have eyes to gap across the board. So
Um,
even if you do get caught in a movement or a pressure, you should at least have the first level secured, and the back will have a chance to not take a negative.
right. Um, do you always run it under center or will you do it out of shotgun or pistol?
I've done it gun, I've done it pistol. Just personally, I think with the backfield action you can get from under center, it's always a little bit more effective. But again, you can do it any which way you want. It's again the rules for the box are the same for
Mhm.
the downs. Again, your middle of 3 ID, backside gap to linebacker. That should put everyone on the same page, and however fits best within your offense of what your quarterback and back's footwork and skill set you want it to be, you can make it work off.
Because we're shotgun team.
Mhm.
trying to convince them to go pistol, but that's just me. I think it works better for wide zone than sidecar wide zone, and I think I think a lot just works better out of. I haven't fully convinced myself to go back to under center, so I can't convince them to do that. I grew up in the power I option, and so now I'm like a rebel. I'm like I can't go back. Like we have to be in gun or something, or RPO or something.
It's not something I thought about as a younger coach, and then you get around a few more defensive guys, and they were so heavily back based in their defensive system. When you
Mm-hmm.
got in the gun, we try and keep it pistol as much as possible. If we are going to be in the gun, there's or at least start them and tap them down right before the
Uh,
snap, because so much of what we were seeing was based on back alignments. You're not, especially if you're a little bit more spread out, you're 11 personnel, Y off, America's formation. No one really cares where the tight end is. At least the people I was around, it was all about where you put in the back. So I was able to keep them a little bit more off balance, at least holding it and not showing your hand quite as early.
well, that's why I wanted to go to it because people knew, oh, he's on the left. He's probably going to the right, like,
Right.
or their
Right.
left. And they knew. And yeah, and so that's why I was like, let's just go pistol. We get downhill. We can do this. I think it'd work better off this duo thing I'm researching like an idiot, thinking it's inside zone and, our wide zone, it would work good. I feel like tossing the ball would be good, like that type of
Yeah.
stuff. So that's what I'm trying to
It,
go
it
to.
there's a little less room for error with it, I guess, would be the one downside. But if you got a center that puts it back there consistently and a quarterback that can handle the exchange, I think it gives you a few more options. People do it from offset, all the time. People do it very well, but I just think at least hiding the backs alignment initially gives you a little bit better chance.
What would be your second favorite run play besides duo?
Uh, I got really into crack toss the past couple years. I just think it again as a compliment. If people want to be heavy and load on these combos, you just get leverage on the perimeter. You're able to get it outside. I've really tried to expand that package, whether it was with jet motion to jet motion away. Again, just finding different ways to get the ball in the perimeter.
And that's when you'll start pulling your
At
linemen.
that point, yeah, down, down, and around. Again, keep it simple. It's all based on backside gap open or closed. If there's someone there, that's mine. I'm down. If there's not, I'm around. And again, just clearly defining it and having answers. If they put the end inside the point, they put the end outside the point of the bunch, and just having guys willing to do it. It was something that was a huge asset for us in the past, as we had receivers and tight ends, so we're 100% bought into the run blocking aspect, because they knew the more effective we ran the ball, the easier the play action shots were going to come.
You and my head coach would get along just fine because everything you're saying is speaking his language of what he wants. And he's a
Yeah,
defensive
and
guy.
it's my thought process has kind of been, you're never quite done learning. I learned a ton from the O-line coach who preceded me at Maine. Brian Picucci taught me as much football as I've learned from anybody, and he really instilled this base knowledge. And you just keep picking up things here or there, but he's definitely the guy that taught me the majority of what I'm teaching. And I like to think that we keep expanding and experimenting every year, so it doesn't get stale.
That's my problem is I get too much knowledge. I call it a football overdose where you just get too much. And I blame COVID. I blame COVID and this podcast because COVID, we had nothing better to do. Two.
So all I did was watch Cool Clinics on YouTube.
Yeah. Yes. It was
And that
crazy.
was about it. And like you say, you have so many. There's a lot of great ideas out there, and there's no one right way to do things. And that's that was something that I had to improve on, is not trying to do it all. What are
Mhm.
the 3 to 4 best things we can do this week, and make sure that if you need to pull it out, they have base knowledge of it. And we'll try and run everything in the spring and figure out what. And then at least you have that knowledge base, that toolbox to pull from, to where if you need to switch it up week to week, there's at least some familiarity and some callback, but you can't have the whole playbook open every week.
I did that as an OC. I was um head coach wanted to have a lot too, but I should have put my foot down and said, no, we only need like 4 run plays because we don't need anything else. But here I am
Right.
going like trying to do like an outside zone where we could toss it, like hook it around, inside zone, power, counter, trap. We were doing it all. Like I could keep going on and on and on. ISO. And then my smart self, as I thought I was like, well, now we can do RPOs, and RPOs are easy.
Right.
All it is you're reading this one guy. Why would I practice it all the time? We'll do it in team, like all that type of stuff. I thought I was the smartest person.
Right. Yeah. What was it? The Patriots Rams Super Bowl. I think they counted 16 different schemes in
Mm-hmm.
that the Patriots ran. And that's why they're the best of the best. As a Bills fan, it hurts to say that. And I think they might be catching them. It just, when we're at our best the last couple of years, it's been 3 to 4 schemes on base down, maybe something else on third down if you really like a certain look or a certain tendency. But same plays, different ways, get to different formations, get to unbalance and FSL, and find different ways to get your leverage. And it doesn't, when you can do those things and motion and shift, and you're, in my opinion, your rules are solid enough to where it doesn't matter who aligns where. If they know what the starting point is, you can really take advantage of different looks.
Well, I'm a Bears fan, so you're a much better fan off than I am.
I was not for a long time though. I had to earn this one. Yeah. I'm just old enough to not remember the Super Bowl years. So this is it was a long playoff drought.
Well, my hopes were up in 2018 when the Bears, before the doink, but ever since then
Mm.
it's been a little downhill sledding a little bit.
Well, it looks like they got their quarterback, so that's half the battle.
He's okay. I'm one of the one of the haters, quote unquote.
Okay. Okay.
Even though I'm okay with it, I'm just not. I believe in 3 years. I believe after year 3, he continues to grow and improve. There he is. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
What was
But
this, year 2 for Fields?
yeah, so like next year,
Yeah.
if he grows and we see a lot, me personally see a lot of improvement. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I've
Mhm.
been hurt too many times with Bears quarterbacks to be like, okay, this is it. And
Yeah.
that's just me though.
Yeah. And I can't say I had 100% faith in Josh Allen when he was drafted, but I'm sure happy with how it worked out.
Well, I think we look at it as a coach too. So I think we look at it a little differently of like this or that. And then I see fans post stuff and I say the opposite. So I'm a hater and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm trying
Right.
to look at it from this angle, or I have the all 2022 from the NFL Plus. So I try to study things and look at it. And I'm like,
Right.
so I look at it a little different than they do.
I'll say this: going into his rookie season, or maybe it must have been his rookie year. We watched him on crossover tape. We played Central Michigan at Maine, and they played Wyoming in the bowl game. And
Mm-hmm.
some of the throws he made, there's like he's got a chance.
Right. Right. Uh, Justin Fields, I watched him. I'm an Illinois fan too, so I had to watch Ohio State beat us or beat people, and so I
Yeah.
watched him. And I hate Ohio State so much, but I had to watch it, and whatever. That's a whole other topic, I guess, because I'm the big hater on Twitter about Justin Fields, and I've even been asked like, "You're not a true Bears fan," and I said, "Well, hold on. I've endured a lot. I'm only 32, but I've endured a lot watching this team. I've earned my stripes, I think." with this.
Yeah. I know the feeling. I think I was 5 years old for the Bills' last of the four Super Bowls, so can't say I really recall.
Hey, at least you've seen it. I've seen one, 2006. I've seen one when Peyton Manning, just stomped us. Um, what was I going to ask you? With duo, will you play action off of that, or when you play action?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, depending on what schemes we have in that week, I have a action off of each scheme. So we'll have dual pass. We have outside zone action, inside zone action. If it's going to be an inside zone week, we have counter pass. Um, we try and make sure that we match formationally and match um, scheme. And the beauty of it is the way we rule it up, the rules don't change. You're still responsible for the same people you would be on duo. Um, you're just obviously not going downfield. So try and marry everything up and keep all the rules consistent.
So they'll take all their same footwork and then just kind of turn into a pass protection after they get there, or is it like a
Yep.
pass?
Yeah. Be as aggressive as you can while still executing the protection. So usually that open side tackle, he's got the hardest job. He's got a little bit of leeway because he's not involved in the cell quite as much. But if you got a combo, if I turn on the tape like the old Peyton Manning, if it's an action or a run, I should be able to tell for the first three steps. We're going to take advantage of that neutral zone and that leeway down the field. We're going to try and get vertical push for a yard or two before we reset.
If your tackle's ever like by himself and he has to kick out, what kind of footwork would you have them do to kick this guy out or make sure he doesn't get in the gap?
I teach drive catch, so he's going to take a normal pass set. If he feels like he's threatened right now, he's just going to pass set and make sure that he doesn't get beat. If he's tight enough, we'll go to more of a jump set, or if he's confident in his ability to reset. But the action does no good if you're beat clean off the edge. So that open side tackle has a little bit more leeway. If he's got to get out there, just take a pass set.
And then in the normal run set, if he's by himself, are you having him take an inside foot path first to kick him out or go right at him then?
But we're going right at him because we're always stepping backside foot first, no matter what. That is a universal rule for all the five guys up front. I'm just not a huge fan of that inside first step because I think it collapses the edge, especially if you're not as big and strong as whoever you're going against. You can kind of get that backside edge collapse down to where if that backside end's a C gap player and you step at him for a step, he's naturally going to soften up just enough because he's got to hold his gap, especially if you're running outside zone as a complement to the play. Whereas if it's step inside, he knows there's no threat to him right now unless you're running some sort of speed option. So he's just going to collapse and press inside. So I just think it gives your tackle a little bit better chance of not having to strain and hold. He can be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah, because I went to stepping inside just because I was so afraid of like getting across our face. And it turned into getting blown up because, like you said, they attacked harder. As soon as they stepped inside, they squeezed.
Correct. And as soon as there's no threat to reach, he can hold his gap and he's just going to try and put you in the B gap. So that we'll still step at it. If we're worried about cross face at all, we'll change up our combos to make sure that guard has eyes to his B gap and to get the play started. Because we want to make sure that if you need it, you always have help, and that's all built into our rules. They're all based on alignments. Again, backside gap, open, close, covered or uncovered determines all of our combos.
Because you have your base rules, and then obviously each week the game plan you have to tweak them. Is that just communication from the lineman? They just know they could have some type of word or communication, or just say like help. Like my
all of our combos have individual names. It's a good bit of memorization up front, but once you get it down, you can say one word and tell the entire group what to do. So if based on alignment, one look this week, we'll change it from a 2-man to a 3-man combo. That'll be a separate call. And there's try to be word association in some way. It doesn't always play out, but it's, just comes down to base memorization. But yeah, if let's off the backside, you got a 3 and a 5, and the minus backers plays wide. They got 3 and 2 gaps. Well, then we're going to involve the center with the guard and the tackle. They anticipate the pirate inside because of alignment. So we're always going to try and give those guys help when needed. And if not, they know that they're one-on-one. So even though they're stepping, plays backside foot first, they're stepping at that end. If he were to cross face, we'll lock on. And if he's heavy, we're just going to step straight up and down. Because off the backside of duo, your block's almost inconsequential. So we'll even pass set off the backside and treat it like draw almost to try and keep those guys guessing. Because as long as you don't get beat inside, the balls never get back. The balls shouldn't get back there unless there is movement from the backside. So as soon as that ends a C gap player, the ball's not getting out to you.
Right. Okay. Because that was the one thing I had to learn with wide zone was how more important the front side was than backside. Like backside almost had to have that hook kind of if they got there.
Right. Yeah, duo is all about the front side combo because you're reading the Mike backer. You got to make sure that you aren't stalemated in the back and press vertical and cut, and he's not having to make that cut at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. But as long as you get in the way off the backside, it's a gap to bounce. Right, it's only going backside versus heavy movement over the top, and even there, it would have to be true end inside for that ball to ever get out the backside C.
So like if the guard,
and we're taking.
Oh, sorry.
We're taking a near number aim point on it, so we're always going to be inside out. So again, you can switch up and kind of keep them guessing off the backside with the pass set as long as you don't get beat inside when you don't have help. But again, if you don't have help, you shouldn't be over aggressive, get in the way because the ball's not getting out to you. It doesn't. We want to teach them be aggressive and play physical, but understand the nature of the play. I don't want to be over aggressive and get swam because that's the only way I can get a minus on this play. If I get in the way and keep him in the C gap, I did my job on the backside.
I was ready to say that, like just be in the way, just be in the way for that 1 to 2 seconds and be gone.
Yeah, even I don't want it again. Snare, I get extended and shed, the ball should be gone. It's a long way for it to chase down the way the back should press the hole.
Because
can't be inside.
I think that's where we were going to struggle is how the kick out. If a guard's by himself, how do they control that? But if you have I'm taking notes. Center guard mainly has to be aggressive in these double teams to make sure that guy has a path.
Yeah, you got to get movement off of the front side or be confident that backer's going to shoot down. You run the play to get the ball to bounce out. To me, if it's going to be an interior hit, you'd almost rather run inside zone to really get those guys flowing and get him give you a chance to cut off the backside as opposed to washing everything down and giving you the bounce read on duo.
Yeah, I have to take notes. So tomorrow when I walk into the school, hey, I talked to a duo guy last night. I'm trying to take notes and figure this out, and so we can do
anything you need. Just let me know. I can send you some film or cut ups or anything like that. It's been my number one run for probably the last 5 years. And we've had a lot of success with it. Built a lot of things off of it. So always happy to spread the gospel of duo.
Oh, I take everything. Wide zone was last year, duos this year. Do you think it's a complicated play to put in for people, or do you think it's actually very easy as long as it's repped a lot?
To me, it's simple, but it's all about how you're teaching it. If as long as you can clearly define it and give them concrete rules. Again, backside gap to linebacker. If there's someone in your backside gap, block them. If there's no one there, check it for one step and climb. It doesn't have to be complicated. Where it does get complicated is you start guessing and shifting and motioning all over the place and not sure where your leverage is going to be. The key to the play is having leverage on the ID. That is the number one thing that I'm looking for. So if you got a 3 technique, play side and the Mike backers stacked outside, that's not great leverage to run the play again because you want the ball to bounce. But if you get any sort of odd or under front where you have leverage to the ID, again, just create the wall front side, wash everything down, and give your back the option to keep it inside or bounce it wide.
Yeah, that'll be the test is to get my kids to ID somebody.
Yeah.
You know, you have to high school kids, you have to be like, oh, this is called a Mike linebacker. This is called a Will linebacker.
Right.
This is a Sam.
Right. Maybe that might be the complicated part. But again, if you can get them to understand the nature of the play and what you're trying to do, you know, they're not the kids can learn. You know, kids aren't dumb. They just have to be taught.
Oh yeah, I just know the first day I walk in for a whiteboard and say, okay, here's plus and minus. I guarantee I already pictured two of my kids. This is not math class. What are we doing with plus and minuses? I guarantee it. That's what's going to happen.
But that's the beauty of the system is where it does again. You get a wide Mike backer and they invert down. Well, now again it's middle of three, so it's not necessarily Mike. Just find the middle of three threats, and everyone's rules are based off that.
Yeah, I took notes and I'll be telling them, and that's exactly what they're going to tell me. You're going to write plus and minus on the board for these beautiful children. Yep, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. You know, that's the one thing that it's a fine line when you install, right? You draw it up in terms of Sam, Mike, Will, but guys, in reality, these are just X's. Who's ever occupying these spaces, that's who we're trying to look at.
Right. And especially against the odd man front we always see, it's probably pretty easy to figure out is what I'm going to tell them. Like, hey,
right.
There's always three, or if they bump him out, all they did is just move over a little bit.
Right.
That's it.
Right. So someone's got to occupy these gaps, especially in an odd front. So that first thing head up to inside of the play side tackle. That's where you want to go. You always want to give that play side tackle leverage on your ID.
Right. That's why
the other way I've heard it done for the odd front, again, might simplify it a little bit, is leave two. So if you're in an odd stack, you're count two back from the first backside backer. So 1, 2, that third one should be your ID because you always want it in two-man section, two-man combo sections.
Right. No, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, hey, just count. So if they move over, you could still go 1, 2. There we go. Like that's what you want.
Right.
I'm drawing that up right now. Like literally just drawing it up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I got into a little bit more with the pin pull stuff. In terms of and leaving certain amount of players, just because the looks could be a little bit varied, especially when you're going the perimeter out of bunch sets. So, depending on what it was leave one or telling the center who he's responsible for, and again, as long as it's clearly defined, there's no one right way to do it. Whatever works best within your system, and as long as the kids understand what the rule is, they're going to be just fine.
We just did for pin and pull. Hey, you can down block. If you're getting down block 4, you're probably the one pulling, and that's
right.
And we saw a team this year on film when we were scouting a defense. They ran pin and pull, and we were like, wait a minute, what are they doing? And they would pull the center even though he had a guy head up, because they were like that he's still occupying because I know is probably going to follow him. So he was still like blocking somebody.
Yeah, that's my weekly dilemma against the odd teams. Are we pulling the center versus the nose, or can we still get the down block done? And I go back and forth on it.
Yeah, I went back to the buck sweep times where if it's odd man center, you can just cut him.
Both guards.
Yeah, guards go center. You got to cut him. Like you got to go that way and just cut him, and that's all.
Yeah. It's, again, as long as you know the rule, you can always survive.
That's what it was. It was cut him or hook him, and they're just stalemate him. If you just stalemate him, that's all I need for that. Because that guy shouldn't even make the play. Right. Won't even be there.
Same thought process. Get in the way, play side. Don't let them get in the backfield right now. Based on the back's aim point, you should outrun a nose. Just get the ball outside.
That's why the backside pin and pull, I used to just step hinge, and I was like, you know what, screw it, just go at a deep angle and try to cut off the linebacker. That backside end should not make the play, shouldn't be there.
Right. Exactly.
And that was my stupid, simple way of doing it. And then we started those condensed sets where we down block and then do all that, and it actually became a play for us at the end of the year. Was you know tight end wing, block down, pull around. It wasn't a toss. We just handed it off. Then we run a pop pass out of it. It became like the play for us.
Yeah, you build your packages, right? You have your formations, you have ways to attack each field zone off of them, and you keep the defense guessing, and you limit the amount of looks you can see. When you live in limited formations, you know exactly what you can get and invest your practice time much more efficiently.
We even did like two H backs in the backfield and ran pin and pull. So we had guy come down, those two went, and the lineman went around. We were struggling this year, and so near the end we were getting crazy a little bit. We were like, let's just do this, and it worked.
As long as it works, right?
It worked once or twice, and then they started, we got outrun or something. It was whatever. But that's where we did. That's where the pop pass came in. So if we brought that guy down, faked it, just boom, he was right there.
Exactly. Right. Have your compliments.
Well, Coach, I know your computer's going to die. You told me that, so we're going to
slowly. You got to work on a new
power. Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about Duo. I think you explained it very simply to me because that's all I need. I need it to be simple. Where I see it, when I see something said 5 different ways, I go, well, wait a minute. Like I need something that's more simple. I need something that is going to fit my brain. Because I do coach other sports, everything has to have a box in my brain somewhere where it has to sit there.
Right.
Our coaches' brains are like garages. We put stuff in a box and then we don't grab it till we need it. It just sits there.
Right. But you know exactly where it is when you need it.
Well, that's why the office in here or my room's always messy. But if it's messy, I know where it is though. It's if I start moving it.
Yeah. It's my mess. I know exactly where it is. It's my own system. It doesn't have to work for anybody else, but I'll find it when I need it.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on. I for sure am going to reach out again more about this for sure because I need to know more about it. I'll probably wait till after your spring ball or whatever it is. Who knows? But I appreciate you coming on. What's your Twitter so I can put it in the bio for people to be updated on Western Illinois?
It is just at Coach Denecke. So Coach and then my last name, no underscores or spaces or anything.
Perfect.
But thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun. Again, anything you need, just don't ever hesitate to reach out. If you're ever back down this part of the state, feel free to stop by.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Well, guys, thanks for watching or listening, and we will see you guys next time.
Mm-hmm.